The first warning came from a man who sounded embarrassed to be calling me, "Mrs. Cole, your account is 43 days past due." I was standing beside the finishing room at Cole Heritage Millwork, watching sunlight catch in the sawdust above the shop floor. North Ridge Lumber had supplied the white oak for our courthouse restoration, and I remembered approving their payment myself. How much? $86,412. The compressor started behind me. I stepped into the hallway. There has to be a mistake. That invoice was paid in May. That's why I called you instead of collections. My name is Marin Cole. I was 62, and numbers had never frightened me. Wood could warp. Machines could fail. Properly kept numbers told the truth. I believe they did. I asked him to email every open invoice. Then I stared through the glass at the 27 people working below. Noah Reyes, our floor supervisor, guided a courthouse panel beneath the carving head. In our shop, one careless cut could ruin thousands of dollars in material. Somewhere upstairs, one careless number had misplaced 86,000. Evan found me 10 minutes later. My son wore a navy jacket over an open collar shirt, looking more like a developer than the operations director of a millwork company. "You disappeared," he said. "The investors will be here at 11. "What investors?" "The Lake House Group. I told you about the walkthrough." He had mentioned a walkthrough. He had not mentioned investors. Evan put an arm around my shoulders and steered me toward the stairs. "I want them to meet you before the tour. Founder's widow, third-generation company, family succession. That's the story they're buying. They're buying cabinetry. They're buying confidence, Mom." He said it warmly but kept moving as if I had already agreed. That had become our rhythm. Evan made decisions, then explained why I supported them. "North Ridge says we owe them $86,000. His hand dropped from my shoulder. For half a second, his expression emptied. He smiled. "Bookkeeping lag. I approved that payment. Then it stuck in reconciliation. We changed the vendor platform, remember?" I did not remember approving a new platform. "We don't have a bookkeeper anymore," I said. "We outsourced it. I'll send you the contact." His phone buzzed. He kissed my cheek and told me not to worry. Through the conference room glass, I watched him rehearse beneath a photograph of his father. Paul wore a work apron and safety glasses. Evan wore a tailored jacket and practiced saying legacy and expansion. When Evan came home from college 12 years earlier, Paul's health was failing. I feared the company would end with us. Evan promised to modernize it and prepare the shop for another generation. He did. He also spoke for me in meetings and treated my planned semi-retirement as if it had already happened. I excused it because I wanted him to feel ownership before ownership was legally his. On paper, I still held 78% of Cole Heritage. Evan held 12. The remaining 10 sat inside a dormant family trust. Inside the building, people increasingly looked at him before they looked at me. At 11, Evan introduced me as the heart of the company, then answered the first question directed at me. When one investor asked how we would expand production, Evan described a second finishing line and a new automated sanding system. The capital report listed both as fully purchased. There was no second finishing line, there was no new sander. After the tour moved downstairs, I checked the report again. The sanding system was listed at $118,000. Installation complete. Final payment released. The marked space along the west wall held 2 broken carts and shipping blankets. No electrical connections. No dust line. No anchor marks. Noah approached, wiping his hands on a rag. "You looking for something?" "The new sanding system." His forehead tightened. "What new sanding system?" I showed him the report. "We asked for one last winter," he said. Evan said cash was too tight. "What about a second finishing line?" He laughed once. Then saw my face. "Marin, he cut overtime again this morning. We're trying to finish the courthouse panels with 6 fewer people on Saturdays." "Why didn't you tell me?" "We thought you knew." That hurt more than the invoice. Now the employees believed the cuts carried my approval. Evan had not simply stepped into my role. He had started using my silence as permission. Back in my office, the Northridge invoices were waiting. I printed them and pulled our payment report. The numbers, dates, and amount matched. Our record said the money had been sent. Northridge said it had never arrived. A second email appeared. Calder Hardware wanted to know whether Cole Heritage had changed banking procedures. Their office had received instructions to send future refunds and credits to a new account. The message used our logo and Evan's name, but the email domain contained one extra letter. It looked correct until you slowed down. I called Calder. Their office manager had ignored the request because the routing number belonged to an online bank she did not recognize. Did anyone call afterward? A man did. He said the change was part of your retirement transition. The phrase felt rehearsed. Evan entered without knocking and placed a blue folder on my desk. The walkthrough went great. They want updated financing authority before sending the term sheet. He turned the folder to the signature page. It would let him negotiate credit lines, approve new banking relationships, and sign certain financial agreements for the company. Standard housekeeping, he said. 2 hours earlier, I might have signed it. I had done that before because he was my son. Every time I questioned him, I heard my own fear underneath it. What if refusing to let go proved I had never believed in him? I closed the folder. I'll read it tonight. It's time sensitive. Then I'll read it. His smile tightened. You asked me to prepare this company for the future. I did. I can't do that if every routine decision becomes a family debate. I'm not debating you. I'm reading before I sign. He studied my face. Tomorrow morning. After he left, I copied the authorization form, the equipment report, and the Calder email. I locked them with the Northridge invoices in my bottom drawer. I still did not know what I was seeing. Bad accounting. A dishonest vendor. An outside scam. Any of those explanations would have been easier than the thought forming at the edge of my mind. At 4:30, I called Northridge and asked for the controller. I gave her the payment date, the amount, and the final 4 digits of the destination account. She asked me to wait while she checked their files. I heard keys clicking, then they stopped. Mrs. Cole, we have never had an account ending in those digits. Could it belong to a regional office? No. We use only 2 receiving accounts. Neither one is at that bank. Through my glass wall, I could see Evan downstairs laughing with the investors beneath a sign bearing our family name. The controller continued, speaking slowly now. Whatever account received your payment, it does not belong to Northridge Lumber. It never has. I thanked the controller, wrote down her direct number, and asked her not to contact anyone else at Cole Heritage until I called back. Then I sat alone with Evan's blue authorization folder beneath my hand. For years, I had treated hesitation like disloyalty. Paul trusted instinct. Evan trusted speed. I checked measurements twice and kept old invoices. Somewhere along the way, I had started calling those habits old-fashioned because my son did. I stopped apologizing. When Evan passed my office and asked whether Northridge had corrected its mistake, I kept my voice even. They're reviewing it. At 5:15, after the shop emptied, I called Tessa Wynn. Tessa started with us at 19, sanding doors and sweeping around machines she could not yet touch. Paul noticed her gift for numbers. We helped her through evening accounting classes, and within 6 years she ran payroll and vendor reconciliation. She left 3 years earlier to care for her mother after a stroke. Evan called it an opportunity to modernize. I let him replace one careful person with software. Outside services, and passwords I no longer controlled. Tessa answered on the 4th ring. Marin. I need help with a vendor review. A pause. Does Evan know? No, she asked for only records I was authorized to access and refused to enter our network with an old password. Why so careful? If this is sloppy bookkeeping, we fix it. If it isn't, we protect the evidence. We met the next morning in a library conference room. I brought vendor lists, payment reports, purchase orders, bank confirmations, and access logs. For the first hour, we found only a late fee, a duplicate software charge, and freight posted to the wrong project. then Tessa sorted the new vendors by creation date. 7 had been added in 14 months. For used commercial mailboxes. 3 used phone numbers routed through the same answering service. 2 listed insurance policies that could not be verified. Alder Industrial had supposedly installed the missing sander. Westline billed us for strategy work. Meridian received 6 payments marked hospitality and relationship development. Who approved them? Tessa asked. The initials beside every payment were EC. She compared dates and amounts. An Alder payment matched a wedding venue deposit. A Westline charge matched furniture delivered to Evan and Claire's condominium. Meridian payments aligned with first-class tickets, a resort, and a private car during a supposed supplier conference. This could still be coding, I said. Tessa folded her arms. A mistake is one wrong project number. Creating vendors, approving invoices, and routing repeated payments is a series of decisions. He may have trusted the wrong service. He may have. That's why we verify. By noon, we had 32 transactions requiring outside confirmation. Tessa arranged them by date and approval path. Just paper, columns, and handwritten notes. The truth did not need decoration. Before we left, she showed me the permissions report. My administrator access had been reduced 8 months earlier. Alerts for new vendors, routing changes, and payments above $25,000 had been redirected to the outsourced accounting address. Evan had entered that address. I searched my memory. There had been no approval meeting. Back at the shop, I found Noah near the time clock. Above him hung the banner Evan ordered after our strongest sales quarter, record year. Stronger future. 6 employees stood beneath it, waiting to clock out before 3. Why are they leaving? No overtime approval, Noah said. Some are short on regular hours too. We have more work than last fall. I know. Then why did they agree? He glanced toward the offices. Evan said the company had to preserve cash for your retirement buyout. My what? He said you wanted to leave clean by the end of summer and the cuts were temporary. I had discussed reducing my schedule, never a buyout, and I had never asked an employee to lose an hour for me. How long has he said this? Since March. And everyone believed him. He's your son. He runs operations. You never corrected him. There was no accusation in Noah's voice. There did not need to be. Evan had used my silence as permission and my age as an excuse for taking money from people who trusted me. That evening, I unlocked the steel cabinet in Paul's old office. Inside were the ownership agreements, trust papers, and the corporate binder Paul assembled after a purchasing manager steered contracts toward his brother's company. Paul then added a misconduct clause. Any officer who concealed a financial interest, falsified authority, or endangered protected funds could be suspended during an independent review. I had once thought the clause was severe. I carried the binder home. I called Dana Mercer, the attorney who handled Paul's estate, and gave her only verified facts. North Ridge had not received our payment. Calder had received false banking instructions. Unverified vendors appeared in our records, and my permissions had changed without approval. Do not confront Evan, she said. He's my son. He is also an officer of the company. Right now, those are separate facts. Dana told me to preserve everything exactly as it existed. No notes on originals. Personal email, or access to devices that were not mine. Vendor confirmations and bank records had to come through authorized channels. Then she asked who could release payments. Evan can approve up to $50,000 alone. And create vendors? Yes. Then reduce exposure before you do anything else. With Dana's guidance, I restored dual approval for new vendors, banking changes, and payments above $10,000. Payroll went into a protected account requiring approval from me and our outside processor. We did not freeze business. We restored controls used for years. Tessa returned under my short-term consulting authorization and worked from the records room beside my office. By her second day, Alder's address led to a mailbox store. Westline used the same answering service. Meridian had no verifiable employees under the tax information in our file. The wedding venue would not identify its client, but the date and amount matched. The furniture retailer confirmed a residential order, not machinery. A travel agency verified that a charge marked client transportation paid for 2 first-class tickets and a hotel package. Each confirmation was limited, but together they were becoming hard to explain. On Friday morning, 3 payments stalled under the restored approval rule. Evan was in my doorway before 9. Did you change the banking permissions? I restored dual approval. Without talking to me. I'm still the majority owner. His eyes moved toward the records room. Who's in there? Tessa. His anger appeared before he hid it. You brought her back. For reconciliation. We have an outside accounting team. Then the records should match. He lowered his voice. You're making us look unstable during financing discussions. I'm asking for 2 signatures. You're signaling that you don't trust me. There it was, the argument I had feared for years. I kept my hands flat on the desk. I'm signaling that company money requires company controls. He waited for the usual apology. I gave him none. His expression softened with effort. You've seemed tired. Are you sleeping? What are you taking for blood pressure now? For months, he had barely remembered my annual physical. Now he wanted my medication list, mail, and bank conversations. He picked up my unopened envelopes as if he were helping. I took them from him. I'm fine. His smile stayed, but his eyes moved to my locked drawer. After he left, Tessa brought me an access log. He asked the system administrator who requested the historical reports. What did they say? That the request came from the owner. That afternoon, Dana arrived with a gray file and asked Tessa to remain as a witness. I checked the county records because of the financing language in Evan's document. She said. Then I checked the company filings. She removed a certified corporate resolution dated 6 weeks earlier. It claimed Cole Heritage had held a special ownership meeting where I authorized Evan to negotiate refinancing secured by the building and sign preliminary lender documents. No meeting had taken place. At the bottom was my name above a signature convincing from a distance. Dana opened Paul's original corporate binder to a resolution I had signed 2 years earlier. The long downward stroke in the M had been copied. So had the unusual break in the C, but the copied signature contained a tremor from an injury I suffered after falling on ice. The forged resolution was dated 4 months before that fall. Dana tapped the page. Someone filed this as if you personally authorized Evan to refinance the building. Through the glass, my son smiled as he shook hands with a longtime client. Then I looked back at the resolution. The signature was mine. The decision was not. Dana left the forged resolution on my desk while she requested the full filing packet. Tessa closed the blinds to the records room. I kept watching Evan through the glass until he disappeared down the stairs. My first instinct was to find an explanation that did not belong to him. Maybe an outside advisor had prepared the document. Maybe someone had attached the wrong signature page. Dana ended her call and looked at me. You are trying to turn an intentional act into an administrative error. I wanted to argue, but the forged dates sat between us. Whoever created that resolution had copied a signature I could not have made at the time. By the next afternoon, Dana had traced it to a refinancing package submitted to Great Lakes Commercial Bank. The collateral included our building, the storage lot, and every major piece of production equipment. Evan was listed as the company contact. The lender had also received a letter from Red Harbor Capital, a private investment group outside Detroit. The letter did not describe a simple loan. Red Harbor expected an option to acquire control after refinancing. It expected authority over budgets, hiring, vendor selection, and future development of the property. One attachment called our river-facing lumber yard underutilized real estate. Another promised rapid labor reductions after closing. That yard held the sheds Paul's father built in 1968. What does rapid labor reduction mean? I asked. Fewer employees, Dana said. Evan could not legally sell my 78%, but he had presented the forged resolution as proof that I authorized him to negotiate, refinance the property, and prepare the transaction for my final signature. The blue folder he brought me would have supplied the missing authority. Tell the lender I don't approve. Not yet, Dana said. If you confront him now, he may destroy records. warn the investors that this is a family dispute, or claim you approved everything verbally. He could put the building beyond our reach. Not without more signatures. We block unauthorized action and learn exactly what he promised. Waiting felt too much like the silence that had brought me there. This is not protecting him, she said. It is protecting the evidence from him. Tessa spent the next 2 days rebuilding 14 months of transactions. On Wednesday, she placed 3 invoices in front of me. Meridian Client Services had billed $48,000 for executive hospitality. Westline Advisory billed $31,600 for strategic accommodations. Alder Industrial charged $62,000 for site preparation and temporary storage. All 3 had been approved by Evan. All 3 connect to the wedding, Tessa said, after Dana sent a records request limited to payments made by Cole Heritage. The venue's accounting office produced the documents attached to our transfers. Meridian's payment was the main venue deposit. Westline covered rooms and transportation for wedding guests. Alder's supposed site preparation charge paid for a furnished lakefront house Evan and Claire had rented for the wedding party. The wedding planner, Melissa Grant, believed Cole Heritage was paying as a family gift. She said Evan told her the industrial descriptions were required for tax planning. Then she forwarded the original payment schedule bearing his personal email address. I thought of Claire thanking me at Thanksgiving for being generous. I assumed she meant the rehearsal dinner I had offered to cover. That evening, she called. Evan said your accounting office contacted Melissa. Is there a problem? There is a review of company transactions. He said you approved the wedding payments as a family gift. I approved the rehearsal dinner. Nothing else. The venue too? No, the guest house. No, traffic moved past her car while she remained silent. He told me you wanted it handled through the company because it was easier for the estate. I never said that. Claire did not defend him. I need to talk to Evan. When the call ended, I understood how carefully he had divided us. Employees were told I wanted their hours cut. Investors were told I wanted the company sold. Claire was told I wanted corporate money spent on their wedding. Each lie borrowed my authority. The next discovery was worse. The county had paid Cole Heritage a $640,000 protected deposit for courthouse materials and subcontracted work. After approved purchases, the account should have held $572,800. It held $358,000. $214,800 was missing. Tessa traced 3 transfers made on June 4, June 11, and June 18. Each went to Alder Industrial under the courthouse project code. None matched a delivery, purchase order, or approved subcontract. Part of the money had paid wedding expenses. The rest had moved to an account we had not yet identified. A false machinery invoice was theft from my company. This was money entrusted to us by a public client. If the project stalled, the county could demand repayment, terminate our contract, pursue our bond, and tell every preservation architect in Michigan that Cole Heritage could not be trusted. I had more than the missing amount in my retirement account. By 6 that evening, I had requested forms for a personal transfer. I told myself I was protecting the contract and 27 families. The truth was simpler. I was preparing to rescue my son before anyone else learned what he had done. Dana arrived while the form was open on my screen. If you replace those funds without disclosure, the record will show that you discovered a shortfall and quietly filled it. I can make the account whole. You cannot make the conduct disappear. I'm protecting the courthouse project. No. You're buying time for Evan. Years earlier, my sister Lorraine stayed with a man who emptied her savings in small amounts. Every time I noticed, I accepted her explanation because challenging it might have driven her away. By the time she asked for help, her house was gone. After she died, I promised myself I would never abandon someone I loved in trouble. I had confused rescue with protection ever since. Dana closed the transfer page. If you cover this privately, Evan learns what he has always learned. You will absorb the damage before it reaches him. The next morning, we secured the remaining $358,000 in a restricted account requiring my approval and confirmation from the outside processor. Through Dana, I informed the county's authorized representative that an internal review had found a verified shortfall in part of the deposit. We did not accuse Evan or guess where every dollar had gone. We confirmed the remaining balance was protected and promised documented updates. The representative asked for daily control reports and proof that material orders would continue. I went to the courthouse that afternoon. Temporary lights shone across the walnut rails and hand-carved white oak panels our employees were installing in the main chamber. Noah and two carpenters checked the alignment around an old doorway. Those panels had been cut, numbered, sanded, stained, and fitted by people Evan described to investors as labor inefficiency. Restoration is patient work. You do not erase damage by covering it. You identify what can be saved, remove what cannot, and strengthen every new joint. Standing beneath that unfinished ceiling, I knew I could no longer preserve my son by sacrificing everyone around him. Noah waited until the carpenters moved away. There's something else. He handed me a packet found on the shared printer near Evan's office. The first page was titled Post-Closing Workforce Alignment. 13 names appeared beneath it. Nearly half the shop: Janelle Price, who taught Evan to read architectural elevations when he was 17, Marcus Bell, who drove Paul to chemotherapy and worked nights without being asked, Noah's own name. Beside each employee was a termination date marked 72 hours after transaction completion. There were no performance notes. Only wages, insurance costs, years of service, and estimated savings. At the bottom, Evan wrote that the cuts would support investor returns and remove legacy resistance. Did you know? Noah asked. No, are you selling? No, he studied my face. Then stop him before he tells everyone you are. When I returned to the shop, Evan was waiting in my office. Good news, he said. The lender cleared the major property questions. He placed a calendar invitation on my desk. The closing was scheduled for 12 days later. We'll need your signatures that morning. After that, Red Harbor handles the transition. Transition into what? He smiled. Into the future you asked me to build. That night, an email went to the department supervisors from Evan's account. Attached was the post-sale restructuring schedule. 13 employees would be terminated within 72 hours of closing. My son had given me 12 days to surrender the company. He had given the people who built it 3 days to disappear. The next morning, I asked Dana how much of the truth we needed before we could stop the closing. Everything we can verify, she said. Not what we suspect. What the records prove. We needed signed vendor confirmations, bank timestamps, login histories, and certified ownership records. We also had to protect the company without warning Evan. Dana opened a document room. Tessa uploaded authorized copies, preserving every date, source, and access record. Northridge confirmed it had never owned the account that received our $86,000 payment. Calder Hardware provided the fraudulent email and a written account of the follow-up call. The furniture retailer confirmed that an equipment installation charge paid for furnishings delivered to Evan and Claire's condominium. The disputed payments had been released using Evan's credentials from his office computer or company phone. 3 occurred while I was at the courthouse with the county architect. Another was approved while I sat in a hospital waiting room with my sister Lorraine. Evan had driven me there and knew exactly where I was. By the 4th day, the conference room wall held rows of invoices, approval codes, delivery addresses, and vendor statements. No theories. Just a pattern. Evan created a vendor, approved its vague invoice, redirected the alert, and buried the payment inside a project report no one expected me to read. Dana placed the authentic ownership ledger beside the forged resolution. My 78% had never moved. Evan's 12% gave him a voice, not control. The family trust still held 10% and could not be directed by him. The sale still depended on my signature. That was our advantage. I scheduled a formal ownership meeting for the same morning as the lender closing. The notice listed financing, management authority, and transaction documents. Evan assumed it meant I had finally agreed. At dinner, he described the freedom I would have after the sale: no payroll problems, no vendor calls, time to travel. I'm still reviewing the documents, I said. He smiled as though my caution were harmless. The following day, Great Lakes Commercial sent a standard closing checklist to every lake house vendor, requesting tax forms, licenses, insurance certificates, and confirmation of completed work. Real vendors answered. The shell companies did not. Alder Industrial could not name an insurer. Westline sent a tax form with a mismatched identification number. Meridian promised a certificate by day's end. At 2:17, it arrived. 4 minutes later, Tessa called the insurer. The policy did not exist. The number belonged to a landscaping company in Kalamazoo. Meridian's name had been pasted over the real insured, and the agent's signature came from a public sample form. The email had been sent through the outsourced accounting address Evan controlled. Dana stopped us from replying, "Preserve it. Do not warn him." I wanted to confront him. Instead, I signed the evidence log and returned to the shop floor. Evan was leading Red Harbor representatives past our largest CNC router, claiming it had been purchased during his modernization program. Paul and I had bought that machine 6 years before Evan returned from college. A temporary inventory label covered the original acquisition plate. Farther down the line, he described our old finishing booth as a recent capital improvement. He stood among machines built through decades of sacrifice and presented them as investments that existed only in his reports. When a representative asked whether the workforce would resist automation, Evan looked at Noah. "The people who fit the next phase will adapt." After they left, Noah removed his safety glasses. "How long are you letting him do this?" "Until the lender sees the same records we see." "And then what? Humiliate him in front of everybody?" He planned to fire 13 people. "I know. But if this turns into a mother punishing her son, the investors call it a family feud. Employees pick sides. Clients leave." He nodded toward the shop. "You don't need to destroy him for sport. Remove his power and keep this place standing." The anger in me wanted witnesses, but Noah was right. Revenge that destroyed the company would finish Evan's work for him. "I'm not building a stage," I said. "Good. Build a record." That afternoon, Claire arrived without calling. She looked exhausted. Evan was meeting with the lender, so Dana joined us in the small conference room. Claire placed her phone and a folder on the table. I confronted him about the wedding payments. He said the accounting problem started because Marin was losing control. She showed us messages claiming I owned only 40%, that he controlled the family trust, and that my signature was ceremonial. Another promised my retirement package would pay for the wedding. He told my parents he already owned the lake house. Claire said, he did not. Red Harbor's development affiliate held an option to buy it after closing. Claire provided wedding invoices, payment messages, and an email in which Evan described the venue costs as buried in the equipment schedule. Dana asked whether Claire had created vendors, approved false invoices, or knowingly used company money. No. I believed Marin approved it. Claire looked at her engagement ring. Last night he asked me to tell anyone who called that she approved everything personally. He said family needed to stay consistent. Her voice hardened. I won't repeat a lie just because I believed the first one. Dana copied only the records Claire voluntarily identified and told her to preserve the originals. She did not end the engagement that day, but she left with the ring inside her purse. On the 6th morning, Evan tried to fire Tessa. He entered the records room with a termination notice. You are an outside contractor interfering with active financing. Tessa did not take the paper. Marin retained me. I run operations. And I own the company, I said from the doorway. His expression shifted. You're undermining me in front of staff. I authorized a financial review. Because of one vendor dispute? Because the records require it. He looked toward the locked cabinets. I want copies of everything. You'll receive information appropriate to your role. My role? You are operations director. You are not the majority owner, legal counsel, or independent reviewer. He tore the unsigned notice in half and dropped it into the trash. That afternoon, he accused Noah of leaking the restructuring plan. It came off a shared printer, Noah said. You had no right to distribute it. It listed my name and 12 others. It was a planning draft. It gave termination dates. Evan stepped closer. You've resisted every change I made since Dad died. Noah's jaw tightened. I worked here before you knew which end of a hand plane to hold. Don't use your father to threaten me. I entered before Evan could turn the argument into grounds for discipline. no action against Noah without my written approval. You're paralyzing management. I'm preserving stability before closing. That answer pleased him. He heard before closing and assumed I still intended to sign. We used that assumption. Dana prepared an emergency resolution under Paul's misconduct clause. It did not declare Evan guilty or cancel his shares. It temporarily removed his authority to move money, create vendors, terminate employees, or bind the company during review. Payroll for all 27 employees was secured for 6 weeks. The courthouse balance remained restricted. Dana recorded notices against unauthorized title changes. The family trust's trustee confirmed that Evan had no authority over its 10%, then we assembled 2 identical audit packets, one for Great Lakes Commercial and one for Red Harbor Capital. Each contained the vendor statements, bank records, login histories, forged certificate, authentic ownership records, false resolution, deposit report, and layoff schedule. Dana arranged for both packets to arrive electronically and by hand at the start of the ownership meeting, not before. Evan needed to walk in expecting control, and the others needed to see his claims beside the originals before he could rewrite his explanation. The night before closing, I arranged my copies in exact order at my dining room table. The true ownership ledger came first, followed by the authentic resolution book, the page bearing my copied signature, and then the money. I did not rehearse a speech. Dates did not lose their temper. Bank records did not grieve. A forged insurance certificate did not need anyone to believe its feelings. At 9:30. Evan came through my kitchen door without knocking. His tie hung loose. We need to talk before tomorrow. He sat across from me. Red Harbor is nervous. The lender is asking questions because someone contacted vendors outside normal channels. You've made routine problems look like a crisis. Compliance requests are routine before a closing. Not when they're handled like an investigation. He leaned forward. Tessa and Noah are feeding you stories. Dana is turning a family disagreement into litigation. If we don't close, there may not be a company left to save. He said the courthouse shortfall could trigger default, the equipment reports would look like failures of oversight. And vendors would claim they followed instructions from our accounting office. Then he placed his hand over mine. Mom, your name is on everything. What are you saying? If you sign, we describe the discrepancies as integration problems and correct them after closing. And if I don't? His hand withdrew. Then I tell the lender the truth as I understand it. You kept ownership while stepping away. You approved payments you no longer remember. You let the systems age, and then interfered when I tried to fix them. He watched my face. The records could make this look like your mismanagement. My son was offering to protect me from a story he had already prepared to tell about me. He believed my silence meant fear. He did not know his access logs were preserved, payroll was protected, the property title was secured, the real ownership records were certified, and the decisive vote still belonged to me. I closed the binder. Then tomorrow, I said, we should let the records speak. The records spoke at 9:12 the next morning. The closing was held in Great Lakes Commercial Bank's conference room overlooking downtown Grand Rapids. Evan arrived first, carrying the blue authorization folder and wearing the same navy suit he had used for the investor tour. 2 representatives from Red Harbor Capital sat beside him. Across the table were the bank's senior lender, its counsel, Dana, and me. Claire entered last. She took a chair near the door instead of beside Evan. He noticed but kept smiling. We should begin with the ownership approvals, the lender said. Evan opened his folder. I have the corporate resolution and the final authorization for my mother's signature. The lender's attorney did not reach for it. We received additional records this morning. For the first time, Evan looked at Dana instead of me. Dana placed 2 documents on the screen. The first was the special resolution Evan had submitted. It stated that I authorized him to negotiate refinancing secured by the company property. The second was the certified copy from our original corporate binder. The dates, language, and signatures did not match. The attorney enlarged my signature on the filed resolution. Mrs. Cole, did you sign this document? No, Evan leaned forward. Mom, we discussed the financing structure. We discussed expansion. I never authorized you to refinance the building. You told me to prepare options. Preparing options is not permission to sign my name. He turned toward the lender. She has been stepping back for years. A lot of decisions were handled informally. The lender's attorney looked at him. Did Mrs. Cole sign the resolution? Evan hesitated. I understood that she approved it. That was not the question. The room became quiet. Below us, through the bank's windows, traffic moved along the street as if nothing inside that room mattered. At Cole Heritage, 27 people were already working. The carving machines would be running. Noah would be checking the courthouse panels. They had no idea whether the company would still belong to us by lunch. The lender opened the audit packet. North Ridge Lumber confirms that the account receiving $86,412 did not belong to them. Cole Heritage's internal records show the payment as properly completed. Evan shook his head. That was a vendor routing issue. Dana displayed the bank confirmation. The destination account was added through the vendor system using Mr. Cole's credentials. The new account alert was redirected to an accounting address he controlled. I did not personally enter every banking update. No one said you did, Dana replied. The question is who authorized it. The next page showed the missing sanding system. The invoice, payment release, and vendor record appeared beside photographs of the empty space where the equipment was supposedly installed. Evan looked at me. You walked the shop. You knew we had capital purchases underway. I knew what was physically inside my building. Red Harbor's senior representative, Malcolm Avery, adjusted his glasses. You represented that the sanding system was operational and included it in the production forecast. It was ordered. The lender's counsel turned to the vendor confirmation. Alder Industrial has no verified operating location, no valid insurance, and no evidence that it sold or installed industrial equipment. Another page appeared. The insurance certificate Evan's accounting address had submitted was placed beside the insurer's written response. The policy number belonged to a landscaping company. The business name had been altered. Malcolm stopped taking notes. Evan, did you provide this certificate? Our outside accounting service handled vendor compliance. Tessa was not present, but her evidence log was. Dana showed the email route, timestamp, attachment history, and account permissions. The document had been uploaded through the address Evan created and controlled. The lender turned another page. Meridian Client Services, Westline Advisory, Alder Industrial, payments described as executive hospitality, strategic accommodations, equipment preparation, and storage. Beside them were the records Claire voluntarily supplied: wedding invoices, hotel blocks, transportation deposits, furniture deliveries, and the lakefront rental property. Claire spoke without looking at Evan. He told me Marin approved those expenses as a family gift. Evan's chair shifted. Claire, this is not the place. You asked me to confirm a lie. I asked you not to panic over accounting classifications. You told my parents your mother was paying for the wedding through the company because it was part of your ownership transition. That was the plan. No, I said. It was your story. Evan looked at me as though I had betrayed him by saying it aloud. Malcolm closed the investment summary. Were Red Harbor funds intended to reimburse any of these transactions after closing? No, Evan said quickly. Dana displayed the protected courthouse account. The original deposit was $640,000. After legitimate material purchases, the account should have held $572,800. It held $358,000. 3 transfers totaling $214,800 had been sent to Alder Industrial under the courthouse project code. The bank's senior lender leaned back. That deposit was represented to us as intact. The project is active, Evan said. Cash moves between phases. Not from a protected client account into an unverified vendor. I was managing liquidity. You were paying for a wedding, Claire said. He turned on her. You enjoyed every part of it. Her face went still. I enjoyed what I believed we could afford. You never asked where the money came from. I asked repeatedly. You lied repeatedly. She removed the engagement ring from her purse and placed it beside his blue folder. I will not marry someone who expects me to help blame his mother for his fraud. No one spoke as she stood. Evan reached for her wrist, but she stepped away before he touched her. Claire, sit down. We can deal with us later. There is no us later. She walked out of the room. Evan watched the door close, and something in him changed. The polished tone disappeared. This entire transaction is being sabotaged over internal bookkeeping problems and a family disagreement. Malcolm looked at the false insurance certificate. This is not how Red Harbor defines a bookkeeping problem. You knew the company needed restructuring. We relied on the ownership, asset, and financial representations you provided. They were materially accurate. You told us you controlled the company. I run it. You own 12%. I control the family trust. The trust confirmation appeared on the screen. The independent trustee stated that Evan held no authority over its 10%. I owned 78% outright. Malcolm read the document twice. You represented that Mrs. Cole was a minority owner awaiting retirement. She was supposed to transition her shares. Supposed to is not ownership. Evan looked at me. You agreed this company needed a future. It does. Then why are you doing this? Because your future required everyone else to disappear. Dana placed the restructuring schedule on the table, 13 names. Termination within 72 hours of closing. The lender asked Evan whether Red Harbor had requested those specific cuts. Malcolm answered first. We requested efficiency projections. We were not told the list included nearly half the workforce or that employees believed Mrs. Cole approved the reductions. Evan pushed the document away. That list was preliminary. It contained dates, I said, because someone needed to make hard decisions. You placed Noah on it. He has fought me for years. He protected this company while your father was dying. That is exactly the problem. Everyone worships the past. His voice rose. This place is full of people who think loyalty is a business model. Old machines. Old processes. Old relationships. Every time I tried to change anything, someone said, "That's not how your father did it." I had expected denial. I had not expected honesty. Evan stood and pointed toward the windows. Though the shop was miles away, I spent my entire life smelling like sawdust. I went to school with people whose parents owned developments, firms, dealerships. They built things that looked successful. We built courtroom panels no one notices and cabinets rich people put in houses we could never afford. So you stole enough money to look like them? I made the company look investable. You invented assets. I created momentum. You forged my signature. You would have signed eventually. The words landed harder than any denial could have. He believed my consent was not necessary because he could always obtain it after the fact. Evan looked at the lender and Red Harbor. My mother stopped understanding the scale of what this company could become. I carried it while she hesitated. I brought in the lake house project. I built the investor relationship. I modernized the systems. You also redirected my alerts, I said, to keep every small issue from becoming a crisis. You used my name to cut employee hours. Because you were retiring. I never authorized a buyout. You talked about leaving. I talked about working fewer mornings. He laughed without humor. And that is the whole problem. You never decide. You wait until someone else does the work, then step in when you are afraid. There was truth inside the accusation. I had avoided conflict. I had allowed him to speak for me because correcting him felt like rejecting him. I had mistaken my silence for patience and his confidence for competence, but my failures did not create shell vendors. I should have challenged you sooner, I said. I should have asked why people stopped bringing problems to me. I should not have treated rescuing you as proof that I loved you. He stared at me, but I did not create those invoices. I did not move the courthouse money. I did not forge that resolution. You planned those choices, concealed them, and repeated them. The Lenders Council asked Dana whether Cole Heritage had taken protective action. Dana handed over the emergency resolution. payroll for all 27 employees was secured for 6 weeks. The remaining courthouse funds were restricted. No property transfer or new lien could be authorized without my verified consent. New vendors and large payments required independent approval. Evan read the first page. You suspended my authority? Temporarily, pending review, Dana said. You cannot do that. The ownership agreement allows it when an officer is accused of concealed financial interest, falsified authority, or conduct threatening protected funds. He looked at me. You used Dad's misconduct clause against me. Your father wrote it to protect the company. I am the company. No, I said. You work for it. The formal ownership meeting began at 10:26. Dana recorded attendance. I represented my 78%. The family trust's 10% interest appeared through its trustee by secured video. Evan represented his 12%. The first resolution suspended his management authority during an independent investigation. I voted yes, the trustee voted yes, Evan voted no. The second resolution removed his power to terminate employees, change vendors, move funds, negotiate financing, or represent the company in a sale. 88% approved it. The third resolution initiated the contractual review of his minority interest under the misconduct provisions. It did not seize his shares. It began the valuation, notice, and dispute process required by the agreement. Again, 88% approved. Evan remained standing after Dana announced the result. You cannot take my shares. No one has, Dana said. The independent review will determine the contractual consequences. You set this up. Yes, I said, his eyes narrowed. You let me come here believing you would sign. I let the lender see the documents you submitted before hearing your explanation. That is revenge. No. Revenge would have been destroying you before protecting the company. Red Harbor withdrew from the transaction at 10:41. Malcolm stated that Evan had materially misrepresented ownership control, asset purchases, vendor compliance, workforce plans, and financial condition. The lender suspended the refinancing application, froze all disputed transaction activity under its control, and referred the forged resolution and payment records to its internal investigations unit. No police entered the room. No one placed Evan in handcuffs. Real consequences did not arrive with dramatic timing. The lender simply began removing and signed documents from the closing table. First the property security agreement, then the credit authorization, then the transfer option. Each folder disappeared into the bank attorney's case. Downstairs, the bank's lobby remained quiet. At the shop, our employees kept working. The sale Evan promised was collapsing while the machines continued running without him. He gathered his phone and keys. You think they will respect you after this? I am not asking them to. You publicly chose employees over your son. I chose the people you intended to make pay for your choices. He stepped close enough that Dana rose from her chair. What happens when the lender decides you were responsible? Your name is on the accounts. You held control. You signed years of reports. That is why there is an investigation. You will regret letting strangers judge this family. The family did not move the money. You did. He left without another word. I thought the worst part was over. It was not. At 11:15, while Dana and the lender's investigator reviewed the last bank confirmations, a compliance analyst entered carrying a single-page transfer record. We found another transaction, she said. The payment had been made 5 months earlier, before the forged resolution was filed. It moved $149,000 from Cole Heritage's general operating account to an entity we had never seen. The authorization showed 2 approvals. One belonged to Evan, the other belonged to me. Not a copied signature on paper, my digital credential, my security token, and a verification response sent from my registered email account had all approved the transfer. The investigator placed the record in front of me. Mrs. Cole, unless we can establish how your identity was used, this transaction appears to have been personally authorized by you. The investigator's words followed me back to the shop. The transfer carried my password, my security token, and a confirmation from my registered email address. Dana asked the bank to preserve every authentication record before anyone reset an account or replaced a device. Then she asked where I had been when the payment was approved. I had spent that day in Traverse City at a preservation conference. Tessa found my hotel receipt, registration, parking records, and photographs from the event. At the exact minute my credential approved the transfer in Grand Rapids, I was visible in the background of a panel discussion nearly 150 miles away. That proved where I was. It did not explain how my token had approved anything. The bank's device record showed the response came from the desktop in my office. The confirmation email had been opened from the same network 4 minutes later. Only 3 people had keys to that room: me, Noah, and Evan. Noah was supervising a courthouse delivery. Loading records, driver logs, and security cameras placed him there. Evan had told everyone he was meeting a client off-site, his phone connected to the shop network 6 minutes before the transfer. Tessa also recovered an email forwarding rule created on my account the night before. Every bank notice had been redirected to the outsourced accounting address Evan controlled. The rule was deleted 40 minutes after the money moved. The physical token had been locked in my desk. I kept the spare key inside Paul's corporate binder because I believed only family knew it was there. Then Dana found the paper that completed the chain, months earlier. Evan asked me to sign an authorization for a banking software update. The original allowed technical support. The copy sent to the bank contained an extra page authorizing him to hold and use my security token during the transition. My initials on that page had been copied from another document. It did not authorize the transfer, but it explained why the bank had discussed my token with him without contacting me. Like the forged resolution, it used a real document, a copied mark, and language designed to sound routine. 2 weeks later, Great Lakes formally removed me from its list of approving parties. My credentials had been used. I had not used them. The county accepted our corrected controls and allowed the courthouse project to continue under weekly reporting and an independent audit. Clearing my name did not restore the money. Investigators froze what remained in one shell account. Insurance and refundable wedding deposits returned another portion. The company recovered enough to avoid layoffs and finish the courthouse work, but the remaining loss and legal costs became part of the restitution claim against Evan. Dana warned me that recovery could take years. For the first time, I did not reach for my retirement account. 3 days after the bank cleared me, I stood before all 27 employees. Noah shut down the machines, and the silence made the building feel larger. I did not approve the sale, the layoffs, or the reduction in your hours, I said. A few shoulders loosened. Others did not, but I allowed my son to speak for me. I ignored warning signs because questioning him felt like admitting I had failed as a mother. My silence gave him room to use my name, and every one of you carried part of that cost. I did not ask them to forgive me. I told them payroll was protected, the courthouse contract remained active, and no one on Evan's list would be terminated because of the failed sale. The audit would continue, and some projects would run tighter until the losses were absorbed. Janelle Price raised her hand. Is Evan coming back? No, the word hurt, but it did not shake. He will not return to management or enter the financial systems while the investigation and ownership review continue. Some employees hugged me afterward. Others returned to work without speaking. I respected both. Outside the shop, people said Paul would have handled it privately and that a mother should protect her only child before protecting a company. They would not have to restore the client funds or explain 13 terminations. I stopped defending myself to them. 6 weeks after the closing collapsed, Evan's name came down from the management board. His 12% interest remained under contractual review and subject to the company's restitution rights. I placed the brass nameplate in my desk. I did not remove him from the family photographs. One showed him beside Paul in safety glasses too large for his face. That memory was true, so were the invoices. Tessa became finance director and rebuilt the vendor system with dual approvals and independent verification. Noah became operations partner. He refused a grander title because, as he said, he had watched titles become more important than work. Together, we created a profit-sharing program and a gradual employee ownership option while I remained majority owner. The first payments were small. The meaning was not, I was no longer preparing Cole Heritage to pass automatically to one person because of his last name. 4 months after the failed closing, Dana received a letter from Evan's attorney. He accepted responsibility for the unauthorized vendor payments, altered corporate records, and use of my credentials. He agreed to restitution tied to his future income and the review of his minority interest. He did not return to the shop. Claire did not return to him. The wedding was cancelled, and she communicated only through counsel when records were needed. Evan's personal letter contained no request for money or reinstatement. He wrote that he had spent years believing success meant never looking embarrassed and never letting anyone see where he came from. He had turned the company, Claire, and me into props for a life he wanted others to envy. He apologized to the employees by name. He did not ask me to forgive him. At the end, he asked whether I would speak to him someday. His attorney also asked the company to describe the fraud publicly as an accounting misunderstanding so Evan could find work more easily. I refused. He asked the company to advance his legal fees against the future value of his shares. I refused again. Then he asked whether his former place in my estate plan would be restored after restitution. The old version of me would have searched for a compromise before he felt the full weight of no. Instead, I revised my estate documents. Evan was not erased, but he would never inherit control of Cole Heritage. Any future distribution would depend on completed restitution, continuing counseling, and full financial transparency. Being my son preserved the possibility of a relationship. It did not restore authority he had abused. I agreed to one supervised phone call. I know you probably hate me, he said. I don't. That's worse. No. What is worse is confusing love with permission. He told me he was in counseling and had a job interview. Will you ever let me come back? He asked, to the company. Yes. No, his breath caught, not even after I repay everything. Repayment may rebuild trust. It does not erase what the employees learned about your judgment. He asked whether he could see me outside the legal process. Continue counseling. Follow the restitution agreement. Provide every record required. Do that consistently, and we can speak again. So there's a chance. There is a boundary. What happens inside it depends on what you do over time. It was not reconciliation, it was not rejection, it was the first conversation we had ever had where I did not rescue him from the answer. By the following spring, the courthouse chamber was complete. The county reopened it beneath the white oak panels that had almost become evidence of our collapse. Back at the shop, employees received their first profit-sharing statements. After everyone left, I went to Paul's old office and removed his brass shop key from its hook. Beside the management board hung a new ownership document. My name remained at the top. Beneath it were the employees entering the ownership program, the people who had stayed, protected the courthouse work, and kept the machines running while my family came apart upstairs. I hung Paul's key beside their names. For most of my life, I believed saving someone meant standing between them and the consequences. That belief had cost my company money, my employees trust, and my son the chance to learn where confidence ended and entitlement began. I had not saved Evan by removing what his choices cost him. I had saved the part of myself that could still say no, the company my family had built, and the legacy his entitlement had nearly consumed.